Good afternoon. My name is Volodymyr Maghziar, and my presentation is a cantilever tension-based building. To start off, in the top left corner, we have my conceptual idea of how to envision the street view and how things are being warped in a very a consistent manner with the grid of the city itself. And this became the general synopsis that I was heading towards when it came to any of my models. Over here was a preliminary sketch to try and sketch out a base template of what the forms would look like. Here is the site plan. Indicating here shows the lot coverage for pink, with the bridge path being highlighted with the naming. Next, we have the section plan. The section, and in here it demonstrates how the tension wires are being pushed in, along with how the cantilever is working, where it would most likely be pushed into the ground itself to add like a pylon pushed through the ground and being pulled in the opposite direction. I have this diagram to try and represent a little bit better the illustration, where it is penetrating in certain points and the direction of these points, and showing here how this is a freestanding curtain wall facade on this end, no longer needing support, allowing the mass height and being all pulled back in that direction. This shows several of the details on how it will be pulled through using the general knowledge I've found on bridges and how they're connecting steel wires, representing here how they are coiled and wrapped around, which is a general view of how it looks like. And this would be wrapped around certain points or columns on end and punctured that are connecting to this point, with a little diagram pointing to where everything is located. Next, we have the general plan. You can see here the ramp is the main axis from the lobby out. The pink is demonstrating what's the inside part of this part that's not really used. The black lines are just demonstrating where it's still untouched ground, and the lot coverage that is not being used. We have the admin to oversee everything, and the way I envisioned everything would be a completely open facade with no partition walls except for bathrooms, and underneath here to cover up the auditorium and music rooms. Here would be playgrounds and such, with ramps disconnecting, with starting at 0, elevation, going down 4 feet with each time you go on the ramp, with 3 separate classrooms. And here is a circulation diagram which shows where the major ramps are. The green one is representing the giant sort of bridge on top of the roof that allows the access of all people through, showing the directions as well. The blue represents the ramps towards the shared spaces. Towards the shared spaces, going in between each of the classrooms. And the pink one is the major ramp to get down between the classrooms. And finally, one more diagram is showing how the actual shared space is actually underneath, which the lowest point would be at negative 16 feet, allowing double height space for the auditorium with the general square footages that I proposed. It's still in configuration. Yes. Finally, I'd like to show the model iterations. Initially, I started off with this one. The wire on the end was sort of something that kind of pervade later on into my design. But this sort of formwork began to dictate how I was envisioning pinching points in a building. And pinching points as in everything is being stretched back. As you might refer back to this illustration, this is the pinching points. And this is not really illustrating the program just yet, but this is representing how the rooftop is created. And later on, this iteration model was just to see how to go in a general direction with program and how things are being pushed out. Now, if we're envisioning that this direction is north, then all of these points would be trying to get as much sunlight as possible. And the direction of the programs would be following in this path. And this will later be the influencing point for the main ramp seen inside my circulation program, in my circulation diagram. Here, I started iterating with the help of Benjamin. Thank you very much. The way that I would start to see the two pinching points exactly, he helped illustrate better what could be seen better, fit for some of the programs in terms of the classrooms and how they would work. While this became the sort of starting point for how I would create the divots and the shifts in the roof. Here was where I would envision what's happening here. And immediately, this takes up a lot of room no matter how you look at it. Even if this isn't the exact form that it is, understanding how playgrounds can be built around those shapes is where I started to illustrate onto this model in particular. Here, I was able to prove the tensioning process, where actually this side is actually heavier than this side. So I pulled this point and I didn't exactly keep this part. However, it just showed that it required a little bit more bracing on this side rather than on that side. And this is the final model to show the tensioning movement. The red illustrates the bridging that I've created. Inside here, the purple is representing the lot coverage of the site. And this is representing the orange is circulation into the other spaces. And here is generally how it's being strung up. Effectively, it is actually on tension, and if I removed all of these pieces, then this would be able to hold up. I was able to prove it beforehand. Unfortunately, I left the program in. Just for a better illustration of how the program is looking, it partially collapsed. I think it must have been damaged during the move, but this is how I'm envisioning the ramps connecting with a particular space, and underneath the green is the shared spaces added in, which fits in just like that. Thank you all for coming, and hopefully you all have good questions that I can answer as soon as possible. Thank you.